change momentum for the next game.
But the fact, after we scored the third goal, and then they kept on coming, and it was just like...
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our May 27th, 2015 meeting of JACO. Welcome, everybody. Let's start with the minutes from our meeting of April 28th. Are there any comments or questions to the minutes from the public session? If there are no comments or questions about the minutes, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from April 28th.
Make a motion.
Commissioner Romeo moves, Commissioner Cavello seconds. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye of approving the minutes.
Aye.
Aye. And if there are no no's, and the minutes are approved. With that...
Hold up.
Okay.
I don't think New York City can hear us. They can't hear us.
All right.
Hold on, Holly.
So hold on.
Let's just give them.
Somebody...
Holly just did something.
Is somebody calling them? New York, can you hear us?
It's on me.
I thought Holly-
Marvin, could you hear us? No.
All right, hold on.
How about Reedy? Reedy, could you hear us?
That's Mary Lou.
Mary Lou and Dave, can you hear us? Dave
Mary Lou,
Renzi, Mary
Mary
Lou.
Lou.
Yeah, we're here.
Yes.
Hear you.
And Mike Rosen, you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Okay.
New York City.
Is Reedy
New
out there?
York. Okay.
She's supposed to go into New York.
Oh. No.
There we go.
New York?
Marvin?
You there?
We're here.
Okay.
Yes, we are on.
Well, we just asked if there are any comments or questions to the minutes from April 28th. Marvin and David, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't.
Okay, we
No.
also, on Commissioner Romeo's motion, we asked for the adoption of the minutes. Are you in favor of adopting the minutes or against adopting the minutes?
In favor of. In favor of.
Okay, so the minutes are adopted, approved unanimously. Turning to item 3 on our agenda, Leticia, can you give us an update on a number of things?
Yes, certainly. Good morning, everyone. Staff is in the process of reviewing the more than 20,000 financial disclosure statements that we received for the May 15th deadline. The financial disclosure statements of the 4 statewide elected officials are now posted on our website, and we'll be receiving the FDSs of the legislative branch at the end of June, and then we'll be posting them on our website, the FDSs of the members of the legislature on our website shortly thereafter. A brief update on some of our outreach initiatives. Since our last meeting, we've continued to engage in an educational outreach effort in order to build awareness around the new local lobbying provisions that were recently enacted. We're continuing to work with local governments and the municipal associations. Just last week, Martin and Shari presented information on the new local lobbying laws to the State Economic Development Council, which represents IDAs across the state. That was at their annual meeting held in Cooperstown, New York. We plan to continue to work with the EDC to get information to potential lobbyists about the requirements that they may need to comply with as a result of the new law. We've also developed new materials which we've just distributed to the Conference of Mayors, the School Boards Association. We're working with the Association of Towns. These materials are available on our website. We're also planning to work with the Association of Counties, NISAC, and we're planning a presentation for their annual conference, which will be held in September in Lake Placid, New York. We also, last week, I want to mention, we were invited by the Conflict of Interest Board to participate in their annual ethics conference. Monica, Rob, and Pepe represented the commission at that ethics seminar where we presented information on Jacob's first 3 years, our accomplishments, and our legislative recommendations. So we'll also continue to work with New York Law School and the Conflict of Interest Board in developing materials and continuing our education and outreach effort.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Martin, but as everyone is aware, we've been working on providing guidance on the issue of the line between consulting and lobbying. We've developed proposed guidance to clarify the Commission's position on this issue. Our proposal today is to publish the proposed guidance that we've developed based on reviewing our precedent and conversations that we've had with interested parties. We would post that and publish that on our website, solicit feedback, engage in dialogue, and then come back to the Commission at a future meeting and have a full discussion on the issue. So that's our proposal. I'm going to turn it over to Martin so he can briefly describe what it is that we put together for today's meeting and what we intend to publish later today.
Thank you, Leticia. As Leticia said, we're proposing new guidance to clarify the scope of different activities that constitute lobbying under the law. We've broken the proposed guidance into 2 rules, one related to direct lobbying and one related to grassroots lobbying. To briefly go through them, within direct lobbying, we framed it as an individual who has, quote, direct communication with a public official in connection with activities covered under the Lobbying Act is engaging in lobbying themselves. And so we've taken that direct interaction as a defined term, and we've defined it to mean both verbal and written communications, including communications to facilitate access to a public official. So that's your direct interaction term that will tie together someone who's engaging in lobbying by virtue of those actions. In the grassroots sector, what we've done is we've synthesized, and this applies to both rules rather, we've synthesized, consolidated, and articulated, and that's all the big words I'm going to use, existing precedent and guidance regarding the scope of activities that had been articulated by our predecessors. And we've said within grassroots, an individual or entity that controls the content and delivery of a message that solicits or exhorts the public to communicate with a public official under an activity covered by the Lobbying Act. That individual who controls the content and delivery is also engaging in lobbying. So grassroots, it's about exhorting or soliciting the public to engage in lobbying. But if you control the content and delivery of that message to the public, you yourself are a lobbyist, or engaging in reportable lobbying activity, rather. So that's the crux of the 2 rules, and we'll be posting them shortly for public feedback.
So if Commissioner Levine came up to me and said, "Do you know Commissioner Weissman?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Could you introduce me because I want to talk to him about ABC." He's now lobbying? Or I'm lobbying? By introducing them?
If you facilitate access to a public official for the purpose of lobbying, that would be covered under the rule.
But I have no interest whatsoever. I could care less. It's
Remember,
just a
the
friend asking if he can-
threshold for reportable lobbying still applies, $5,000 in compensation and expenses. The activity itself is covered under the law. Whether or not it's required registration on your part would hinge on the threshold. But the activity would be covered as something that could constitute lobbying.
Yeah, I have a question when you're finished.
Senator?
Okay?
Yes.
Question, in relation to large firms that have registered lobbyists, but they also have positions called managing partner or consultant. And much of this, as we all know, of the lobbying activity has to do with who knows who and who picks up the phone and who makes the phone calls. And are we going to address any of that rather gray area?
Well, I think
I think, Mary Lou, and I'll let Martin speak more specifically, but I think that's exactly what these clarifications are intended to cover.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It's that phone call, as you say, to facilitate lobbying access, whether it's traditionally thought of as lobbying or not, under this rule, that access in order to enable lobbying is part of the lobbying effort.
Okay, and let me ask a backup question as to how we are going to publicize to the regulated community that this information is going to be posted for their review and comment.
Well,
I think you walked through the process at the outset, but let's just do it again so we can be clear about what the staff is recommending with respect to the process.
Thank you.
Senator, we would post this on our website. We'd send around an e-blast. We have a list of over, 6,000 lobbyists and clients of lobbyists, and we'll disseminate the information to them via an e-blast.
Okay, and those that might be considered consultants or managing partners, we assume they would find this information through having conversations with the people in their organizations who were lobbyists per se, and that word of mouth would move this around.
Oops.
Well, I think that,
Dan.
there's just, we continue to have audio, but the video hookup for those who are in remote locations needs to be reset. So let's continue the discussion. Again, I turn it over to staff, Mary Lou, but I think the whole purpose of bringing this issue up in the way that we have is to make sure that the regulated community is aware. And I think what I'm hearing from the staff is that we are going to use, whatever channels that we have available to us to make sure that the regulated community knows that these clarifications are under consideration.
Okay, I know I'm begging the question, but I wanted to publicly comment because I think that this gray area, as I characterized it a moment ago, is critical, and it's one of the places where the public trust breaks down. And I wanted to be very clear and again note that because I think it's critical in terms of how people view JCOPE and what we do. Frankly, I think it's critical.
I agree, Senator. I think we're going to widely disseminate this information. We'll continue to engage in outreach and dialogue with the regulated community as well as other groups and lobbying firms, and we'll work on developing lists of consultants that we might want to get the word out to. So I think you make a very good point.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions about these clarifications? Yeah. No. What is the timetable, Martin, for getting comments back on these clarifications?
well, we're going to post it ideally today or tomorrow. And then I suppose the comment period will be open for a couple of weeks. We want to give people ample time, and it's summer, so obviously everybody's not around at the same time, but I expect the comment period will be open for a couple of weeks, and then staff will attempt to consolidate them and be able to bring them back to the commission in some form, whether it's at the next meeting or...
And the form that you think that it might come back to us is what?
Oh, well, the comments themselves we'll review internally, but I think ultimately this is expected to emerge as an advisory opinion that will encompass these two rules as well as any other, context that we think, based on public feedback, needs to be included.
Dan,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
is there anything that would preclude us from doing it as a regulation, as amending our regulations after you get the feedback?
No, I don't think there's anything legally that precludes us. It's just a question of whether we want to address lobbying issues individually in regulation or possibly more of them together in one set of regs. But no, there's nothing that precludes it being done that way. An advisory is just a faster method of getting it out.
These two clarifications. I take it these are not the only clarifications that we may be considering with respect to the lobbying laws. Is that right?
Absolutely. As we've discussed over the last few months, there are a number of questions where there's, if not existing precedent, at least confusion about where that line is or whether the commission has opined on it or any commission has opined on it. So, grassroots lobbying, the scope of direct lobbying, there are a number of other issues that we're going to address, third parties and coalitions and associations. These are issues that we've told the commission and the public that we want to take a look at, and we expect to do that as well as these that we're presenting for you today. So those could be part of a larger regulatory package.
All right, we're going to take a short break while the technicians reestablish the connection, the video connection. So we're going to take a break until the connection's reestablished. Thank you.
It's too far away. That's why you get
Seymour.
Yes, you know.
Can't keep it though, I need it.
Hold on for a moment.
Well, have them make a copy of something.
Sounds good. Do we have a session yet? Do we have,
Yeah,
The day after, yeah.
I think the
Day
mics
before.
are,
So everyone's
before.
clear? I think
audio is still
The
on.
audio is still on.
thanks. Sounds good.
Take a picture of it.
Audio's off.
All right, we're back in public session. During our executive session, the commission considered and approved the settlement of the SB investigation. We considered it and opened a substantial basis investigation. We adjourned an investigative matter for the purpose of communication. We discussed a pending substantial basis investigation, and we approved an exemption to the provisions of Section 73, Section 8B of the Public Officers Law. Unless there is any other new or pending business before the commission, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you. We will see you June 30th.